The stars looked cold and distant through the wide glass of the Endeavor's observation deck. Commander Elias Reyes stood with his hands folded behind his back, studying the silent void. The ship drifted near a collapsed star, a place where no human vessel had reason to linger except for science. The research team had been charting energy readings when something unusual appeared on the sensors. At first, it was only a blip, small, inconsistent, like background noise. Lieutenant Harper thought it was an equipment glitch. Dr. Soren believed it might be a strange pulse from the dead star's remains. But the reading grew stronger, closer, and more persistent. Reyes frowned at the main screen. "Are we tracking debris?" he asked. "No, sir," Harper replied, adjusting the sensors. "It's moving too." Deliberate, not natural drift. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Space was vast, empty, and cruel. Few things moved with intent out here other than ships. And there were no registered vessels within light years. The blip drew nearer, heading directly for the Endeavor. "Visual?" Reyes asked. Static flickered across the external cameras. For a moment it seemed as if nothing was there, only blackness and starlight. Then the picture cleared and several officers gasped. Something or someone was crawling along the outside of the hull. It was a woman. Her figure was small against the massive ship, but her shape was unmistakably human. She clung to the outer plating with bare hands, moving slowly but with strange precision. Her body was uncovered. No suit, no helmet, no protection of any kind. Yet she showed no signs of suffocation or freezing. Her long hair drifted around her face in the vacuum. "Impossible," Dr. Soren whispered. His voice cracked with disbelief. Everyone stared at the screen. The woman stopped crawling for a moment and turned her head. The external camera zoomed automatically. Her eyes seemed to meet the lens directly, as if she knew she was being watched. And then she smiled. It was not a weak or desperate smile. It was calm, unsettling, and confident. Reyes felt the air grow heavier in the control room. None of this made sense. A human body could not survive more than seconds in the void. Yet here she was, crawling across their ship like a shadow come alive. "Sir," Harper said, his voice tense. "Should we activate defense systems?" Reyes shook his head firmly. No, if she meant us harm, she would not need theatrics. "Open an external channel. Try to hail her." The communication officer obeyed, broadcasting messages in multiple languages. There was no response. The woman only continued moving across the hull, crawling toward the ship's airlock. "She's heading for Dock 3, Harper reported. Reyes hesitated. Every instinct told him this was dangerous. But another instinct, the one that had carried him through years of exploration, whispered something else. Humans had always met the unknown face to face. If this was a threat, they would handle it. If it was not, then this woman might carry knowledge worth more than any treasure. "Prepare the airlock," Reyes ordered, "and a security team." The crew moved quickly, tension buzzing in every motion. Dock 3's inner chamber was filled with armored guards, medical staff, and technicians ready to seal the area at the first sign of danger. The outer hatch cycled slowly, and cold air spilled into the room as the void was opened. Through the transparent barrier, they saw her. The woman crouched just outside, one hand resting gently on the metal surface as if she had been waiting. Her smile remained. The inner lights illuminated her clearly now. She looked ordinary in the strangest way. Human, without doubt. Skin pale from starlight, eyes dark and steady, hair tangled from drifting in the vacuum. Her body showed no wounds, no scars, no frozen damage. "She shouldn't be alive," Dr. Soren whispered again. The outer hatch closed, and air hissed into the chamber. When the pressure normalized, the woman drew in a breath, her first breath of oxygen in who knew how long. She did not collapse. Instead, she stood straight and calm. The inner door opened and the security team raised their weapons. She stepped forward slowly, her movements graceful, unhurried. Reyes stepped out from the gathered crew. His voice was firm but steady. "Who are you?" The woman tilted her head as if listening to a sound no one else could hear. Then she spoke softly. Her voice carried a strange clarity that silenced the room. "They're coming," no other words. Just that. Then her eyes rolled back and she collapsed into Reyes's arms. The medbay glowed with sterile white light. Machines hummed softly as they scanned the woman's body. Dr. Soren moved between consoles, muttering under his breath. Her cells, they're human. Normal human structure. "But here, look at this." Nanostructures woven into her tissues, finer than any I've ever seen. They reinforce her organs, protect her blood, strengthen her muscles. Rhea stood beside the bed studying the sleeping woman. She looked peaceful now, almost fragile, though he had seen her cling to the void with a smile. "Is she dangerous?" Reyes asked. Soren shook his head slowly. "She's beyond dangerous, if she chooses to be. But more than that, she's impossible. She should not exist. This kind of integration is beyond any technology we've mastered." Reyes looked at the screen displaying her DNA. It was human. Every marker matched baseline Earth stock. Yet she was wrapped in something greater, something ancient or advanced beyond comprehension. He remembered her words. "They're coming." Who were they? And why would she risk everything to crawl onto their hull just to warn them? Hours passed. The crew whispered theories in the mess hall. Some thought she was a lost experiment from a hidden government program. Others believed she was an alien construct made to mimic humanity. A few even whispered religious interpretations, an angel, a messenger in human form. Reyes listened but said nothing. He had seen her eyes. They were human eyes filled with something familiar, willpower. Yet they carried knowledge that none of his crew understood. When she stirred at last, the medbay fell silent. Her eyes opened slowly. She looked around as if waking from a long dream. Her gaze found Reyes, and she studied him with quiet recognition. "You pulled me in," she said softly. "Yes," Reyes replied. "You were on our hull. Do you know who you are?" The woman hesitated. "Lyra, that was my name, at least, it used to be." Soren leaned forward eagerly. "Lyra, how did you survive in space without protection?" She looked at him with a faint, almost amused expression. "I was made to survive it." The doctor frowned. "Made by who?" Her expression darkened, and for the first time the smile faded. "Not by choice, not by mercy, but by need." Long ago, when they began to feed, Reyes exchanged a glance with Soren. "They?" Her eyes grew distant as though seeing something beyond the walls. "They hunt in the dark between stars. They devour civilizations until nothing remains but silence. We tried to fight. Most failed. I survived, and I crossed the void to find you. Because they are coming again." The medbay was utterly still. Every heartbeat sounded like a drum in the silence. That night, Reyes stood alone in the observation deck again. The stars shone with their cold, ancient light, and the dark shape of the dead star loomed nearby. Somewhere beyond, in the endless shadows, something stirred. Something so terrible that a woman had been remade, cast into the void and sent crawling across his hull just to deliver a warning. He did not know what the future would bring. But he knew one thing. Humanity was not ready for whatever she had seen, and yet humanity had always faced the impossible before. Behind him, the doors slid open. Lyra stood there, awake and steady, her eyes on the stars. "You don't believe me yet," she said softly. Reyes turned to her. "I believe you survived the impossible. That alone is enough to take your words seriously." She smiled again, that same calm smile she had given the camera in the void. "Then you must prepare. Because what comes next will test not only your ship but your species." Reyes looked back at the stars, his jaw set. He had no answers yet, but he knew the Endeavor had just crossed a line into a story far larger than their mission, and it had begun with a woman who crossed the void, crawled onto their hull, and smiled. The crew of the Endeavor could not sleep that night. Whispers filled the corridors, echoing through the quiet ship as it drifted in the dark sea of stars. Some whispered that the woman was a savior, sent to warn them. Others whispered that she was a trick, a weapon sent to lure them into danger. Commander Reyes listened to none of the rumors aloud, but in his heart, doubt gnawed. He had seen her crawl across the hull, smiling at the void, and his instincts told him this was not a trick. Yet the question remained, what was she warning them about? The next morning cycle, the crew gathered in the conference chamber. The ship's senior officers sat around the oval table, the holographic stars glowing faintly above. At the far end sat Lyra, wrapped in a simple medical robe, her dark eyes studying everyone calmly. Reyes began. "You told us last night that they are coming. Who are they?" Lyra's eyes drifted toward the holographic stars. "You call them many things in your myths. Demons, shadows, devourers. They are older than your species, older than your worlds. They feed on civilizations until nothing remains but silence. We called them the Harvesters." The crew shifted uneasily. Lieutenant Harper frowned. Harvesters? What exactly do they harvest? Lyra looked at him directly. Life, minds, energy. They strip planets of their people, their knowledge, their very light. When they are finished, only dead rock and silence remain. Dr. Soren leaned forward, his voice sharp. You expect us to believe in a species capable of consuming entire civilizations? We've charted hundreds of systems, no sign of anything like this. Lyra's smile returned, faint and sad. Of course you haven't. They leave no signs. Only absence. Do you wonder why so many sectors are empty? Worlds with perfect conditions, yet no life? That is their work. The room fell quiet. For centuries, explorers had wondered why the galaxy seemed so barren of advanced civilizations. Perhaps now there was an answer. Reyes broke the silence. You said you were made to survive. To fight them. What do you mean by that? She touched her chest lightly. Long ago, before your memory, humans fought against the harvesters. They lost again and again. But some experimented. They built weapons out of flesh, out of human bodies. I am one of those remnants. My body is reinforced, reshaped, but my mind remains human. I was sent into the void to endure where no machine could last. And I survived. Harper shook his head almost angrily. If this is true, why has humanity forgotten? Why no records? Why do we not remember this war? Her voice dropped low. Because forgetting is safer. To remember them is to call their attention. They do not tolerate memory. Entire archives, entire colonies erased. You live now because they turned their gaze away, believing your kind broken and scattered. But something has drawn them back, Reyes asked quietly. And what is that something? Before Lyra could answer, alarms wailed. The table's hologram flared red, showing ripples in the starfield nearby. Gravitational distortion, Harper shouted, reading the feed. Something's moving out there, massive, closing fast. The officers leapt from their chairs. Reyes barked orders. All stations. Full scan of the anomaly. Lyra stood slowly, her face pale but calm. It is them. A harvester scout. The control deck was alive with tension. Lights flashed across panels. Warning tones rising and falling like the heartbeat of the ship. The crew scrambled to make sense of the readings. Object emerging on the far edge of the system, Harper reported. Size, at least 30 kilometers across. Structure unknown. On the main screen, the distortion shimmered and resolved. A shape appeared against the stars and gasps filled the deck. The vessel, if it could be called a vessel, was like nothing human. It looked alive. Its hull pulsed faintly like muscle under skin, dark veins glowing with strange energy. Massive tendrils unfurled, drifting like the arms of a deep-sea creature. It moved with deliberate grace, not like a machine but like a predator. Dr. Soren whispered, Dear God. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes locked on the alien shape. A harvester scout. Small, compared to what will follow. The ship loomed larger as it drifted closer, its tendrils reaching across the void as if tasting for prey. The sensors blared with warnings as strange energy fields probed at the Endeavor's shields. They've found us, Lyra said softly. Reyes clenched his jaw. What are their intentions? They do not parley. They do not warn. They only take. The crew debated furiously. Some officers demanded they fire weapons. Others begged to flee at once. Reyes looked to Lyra. Can it be destroyed? She hesitated. Not easily. Its armor is not metal, it is living. It adapts to attacks, but it can be resisted. I cannot do it alone. Your ship has power. Together we may wound it enough to drive it back. Dr. Soren frowned. Drive it back? That thing is 30 kilometers wide. Lyra's gaze hardened. You misunderstand. This is only a scout. If it marks you, others will come. Entire swarms. Your species will not survive unless you fight now. Silence fell. The thought was too heavy to ignore. Reyes finally spoke. Then we fight. The crew rushed to battle stations. The Endeavor was not a warship. It was a research vessel. But it carried defense weapons, particle beams, and experimental drives meant to protect explorers in dangerous space. The alien ship loomed closer, its tendrils brushing invisible fields around the Endeavor. Sparks danced across the shields and the deck shuddered with each probing strike. Shields holding at 80%, Harper shouted. Reyes stood tall at the center of the deck. Target tendrils. Fire when ready. The Endeavor's beams cut across the void, striking the alien mass. For a moment it seemed effective. Sections of its pulsing skin blackened and tore, but then before their eyes the damage healed, tissue knitting itself whole again. It's adapting, Soren cried. Lyra's voice cut sharp through the panic. Not fast enough. Keep hitting it. Force it to retreat. More blasts raked across the harvester's hide, tearing glowing wounds. The ship trembled, its tendrils whipping wildly. The Endeavor shook as the alien struck back, slamming energy waves into the shields. Shields at 50%. Harper yelled. The crew clung to their stations. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but they kept firing. Reyes looked at Lyra. If you know a better way, tell me now. She closed her eyes briefly, then spoke. Your experimental drive, it bends space, does it not? Feed its energy into the weapons. Use me as the conduit, Reyes stared. That will kill you. Her smile returned, faint and fearless. I was made for this. Let me show you what humanity once knew. She moved quickly to the engine chamber, Reyes following close behind. The humming of the core filled the air, vibrations shaking the floor. Lyra placed her bare hands on the conduits. Her body lit faintly, veins glowing silver as the nanostructures came alive. The crew hesitated, watching in awe as she connected with the ship. She looked at Reyes one last time. Aim true, Commander. I will carry your strike. On the deck, Harper shouted. Energy spike. Weapons overloading. Fire! Reyes ordered. The Endeavor's beam lanced out brighter than any before, powered by both machine and flesh. It struck the harvester's core. The alien shrieked, a soundless vibration that rattled the ship's bones. Its tendrils writhed violently, tearing against the void. Sections of its hull split apart, glowing with raw energy. And then it recoiled. The massive creature ship pulled back, tendrils retracting, wounds gaping but healing slower now. With one final shudder, it turned and slid back into the dark, vanishing into the stars. Silence fell. The crew stared at the empty space where it had been. The ship's lights dimmed, system stabilizing. Lyra collapsed, the glow fading from her skin. Reyes caught her before she hit the floor. She opened her eyes weakly and whispered, This was only the beginning. That was a scout. The swarm will follow. And then she smiled, the same calm, haunting smile as before. The Endeavor floated in the quiet void once more. But now the crew knew the silence was not peace. It was only the pause before the storm. Reyes stood at the observation deck again, staring into the infinite dark. The harvesters were real. Humanity's myths were real. And now war was coming, he whispered to himself. Then we'll be ready. Behind him. Lyra stirred in the medbay bed, her faint smile lingering, as if she already knew humanity's spirit would rise to the challenge. The warning had been given. The fight for survival had begun. The Endeavor floated in silence, its hull scorched from the fight. Alarms had quieted, but the memory of the alien attack still weighed heavy on every crew member's mind. The Harvester scout had retreated, but no one believed they were safe. Commander Reyes stood at the central deck, gazing at the main screen. The stars shone with their cold indifference, hiding the paths of predators that lurked beyond sight. He clenched his jaw, his thoughts heavy. The harvesters were real. Humanity was no longer alone in the void. Behind him, footsteps echoed. It was Lyra, wrapped in a fresh uniform given by the crew. Though she still looked pale, her steps were steady. Her calm smile had returned, though her eyes carried shadows of knowledge none of them could share. You pushed yourself too far, Dr. Soren scolded from the side, glaring at her. No human body could endure what you did. You should be in bed for days. I'm not simply human, Lyra replied softly, and time is not on our side. Reyes turned to face her. You said the scout was only the beginning. How soon will more arrive? She paused, as though listening to something beyond their hearing. Soon, maybe days, maybe weeks. When one harvester marks prey, the swarm follows. It is their way. You fought them once and hurt them. They will not forget. The deck fell silent. Crew members exchanged uneasy looks. Reyes spoke firmly. Then we prepare. We cannot run. We cannot hide. Humanity has survived worse odds, and will survive this too. Harper muttered under his breath. Have we really faced worse? But he said no more. In the following days, the Endeavor became a hive of effort. Engineers reinforced the hull with every scrap of material they could spare. Weapons officers recalibrated beam arrays, trying to maximize their output. Scientists worked side by side with Lyra, studying the strange nanostructures in her body to understand what she was and what she represented. For many, fear grew stronger than curiosity. Whispers returned. Was Lyra truly human or something built to lure them into destruction? Yet when the doubts rose, they remembered her standing on the hull, channeling the ship's power through her body to strike the harvester. That was no trick. That was sacrifice. In the medbay, Dr. Soren examined her cells again and again. He could not look away. These nanostructures are beyond anything our species has built, he explained to Reyes. They repair her tissue faster than I can measure. They allow her to breathe in vacuum, to endure radiation, to channel energy directly. And yet her DNA, her very core, is human. She is proof that humans once reached far beyond what we remember. Reyes folded his arms. Then we have to learn from her. We can't rely on her alone to fight the swarm. Humanity must stand on its own feet. Lyra, listening nearby, gave a faint nod. That is the truth. I am not here to replace humanity's strength. I am here to remind you of it. The harvesters fear humans not because of weapons or machines, but because of what you are. Harper frowned. And what exactly are we? Lyra looked at him directly, her voice calm. You adapt. You endure. You change faster than they can consume. You turn weakness into power. That is why they once failed to erase you completely, and it is why they will fear you again. Her words settled deep in the room, giving strength where despair had taken root. 3 days later, the Endeavor's sensors screamed again. A ripple in space. A distortion growing larger. Harper's voice was tight. Something's coming. Bigger than before. The crew rushed to positions. On the main screen, the distortion widened like a wound in the fabric of stars. And then it emerged. The harvester ship was colossal, 5 times the size of the previous scout. Its body stretched like a monstrous leviathan, plated with living armor pulsing with inner light. Tendrils unfolded like wings, and a low vibration rattled through the Endeavor's hull, as if the alien ship's presence alone weighed on reality. Gasps filled the deck. Dr. Soren whispered, "How do we fight something that size?" Reyes's voice cut steady. "The same way we always have. We find a way." The alien ship moved closer, its tendrils already probing space. Strange pulses struck the Endeavor, testing the shields. The lights dimmed, flickered, then steadied. "Shields at 90%, Harper reported. Lyra stepped forward. "It is not just here to destroy you. It is here to test you. If you fail now, they will call the swarm. If you hold, they may hesitate." Reyes nodded once. "Then hesitation is all we need." The battle began. The Endeavor's beams lanced out, cutting across the void. Explosions burst across the alien hull, but again the wounds began to close. The harvester struck back with energy waves that slammed into the shields, sending tremors through the ship. "Shields at 60%, Harper called out. "Hold steady," Reyes ordered. "Target its core. Don't let up." The crew obeyed, but fear clawed at their voices. The alien ship was too large, too powerful. Each strike felt like a pebble thrown at a mountain. In the engine chamber, Lyra prepared herself again. She pressed her hands to the conduits, her body glowing faintly. She winced, her strength not fully recovered from before, but she pushed forward. "I can't match its size," she admitted, "but I can show you where to strike. Its core is hidden, but I can sense it. Link me to your sensors." Reyes gave the order. The ship's systems merged with Lyra's strange biology, her nanostructures amplifying the scans. A glowing image of the alien ship appeared with a faint point deep inside. Its beating heart. "There," she whispered. "Focus all fire," Reyes commanded. The Endeavor's beams concentrated on the single point. The alien hull writhed, tendrils lashing violently. Energy storms battered the ship. Consoles sparked, alarms blared, "Shields at 30%. Harper cried, "Keep firing!" Reyes shouted back. The alien screeched silently, space itself trembling. Its tendrils reached for the Endeavor, wrapping around it like the grip of a giant serpent. Metal groaned, shields cracked. In that moment, Lyra acted. She tore herself free from the conduits and ran to the nearest airlock. "Lyra!" Reyes shouted after her. She turned back, her calm smile unbroken. "This is why I was made. Trust me." Before anyone could stop her, she cycled the airlock and stepped into the void once more. The cameras tracked her as she crawled onto the hull again. Her body glowed brighter than before, veins shining silver and blue. She moved toward the tendrils wrapped around the ship. The alien's grip tightened, crushing metal. But then Lyra pressed her hands against the tendril. Light burst from her body, racing through the alien tissue. The tendril convulsed violently, splitting apart as if burned from within. "Shield stabilizing," Harper shouted. On the screen, Lyra crawled further, each movement slow but unstoppable. She reached the alien's outer plating near its core. She pressed both hands against it, her entire body glowing like a star. Now, her voice echoed faintly through the comms. Fire now! Reyes didn't hesitate. All weapons, fire! The beam struck the same spot where Lyra poured her light. The alien's hull cracked, burst, and split wide. A brilliant explosion ripped through its core, shaking space itself. The harvester ship convulsed. Its tendrils flailing madly, then slowly it began to break apart. Pieces of living metal drifted away, glowing, fading. The colossal ship shrank into silence. The deck erupted in cheers. But the cheers died quickly as Lyra's body went still on the hull. Minutes later, she was brought back inside. She lay weak and pale on the medbay bed, her glow gone, her breath shallow. Dr. Soren worked quickly, scanning her, but she only smiled faintly. You did it, Reyes said quietly, standing beside her. No, she whispered. We did it. Humanity did it. Soren looked at the readings, then shook his head. Her body is burning itself out. These nanostructures, they can only heal so much. Reyes clenched his fist. Then we find a way to save her. We owe her that much. Lyra looked at him, her smile soft and calm. Save yourselves. That is what matters. The swarm still waits. You have proven you can wound them. Now you must prove you can endure them. Her eyes fluttered closed, though her chest still rose and fell. She slept deeply, her strength uncertain. Reyes turned to the crew around him. She reminded us of who we are. We're human. We adapt, we endure. And if the swarm comes, we'll show them what it means to fight humanity. The crew nodded, fear mixed with new resolve. For the first time they believed. The battle was not over. It had only begun. The ship Endeavor drifted in the shadow of the giant harvester vessel. The alien ship was like a dark mountain floating in space, bigger than any natural structure the crew had ever seen. It stretched across the void like a sleeping beast, its surface alive with strange lights and movements. It was not metal, not flesh, but something in between. The crew of Endeavor watched it from their screens and windows, their hearts heavy with fear. Commander Reyes stood at the center of the bridge. His hands were clenched behind his back, his eyes fixed on the massive predator outside. Every instinct told him that they should run, but deep inside he knew running was not enough. They could never outrun something that had hunted civilizations for ages. Beside him stood Lyra. Her face was calm, though her eyes glowed faintly with the nanostructures that lived inside her body. She was no longer just human. She was something more, something designed to face horrors like the Harvester. Yet at that moment she looked small and fragile compared to the endless monster outside the ship. The silence on the bridge was broken by Lieutenant Harris. Sir, it's scanning us again. Energy spikes are rising. His voice shook. If it decides to strike, we won't last a second. Lyra turned her gaze toward Reyes. We have a chance, she said softly. But it will take all of us. Reyes looked at her, his jaw tight. Tell me what you need. Preparing the plan, Lyra explained her idea. The Endeavor's experimental drive produced energy strong enough to bend space for short jumps. If that energy was channeled into her nanostructures, she could release it as a weapon, but the process would be dangerous. The ship's systems were never built to focus so much power in one burst. The crew could die if anything went wrong. You're saying you want us to turn you into a living conductor, Reyes said slowly. Yes, Lyra replied. I was made for this purpose. My body can survive in the void, but I cannot generate enough energy on my own. With your ship, we can create a pulse strong enough to hurt it. Not kill, but drive it away. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Some whispered that this was suicide. Others felt a spark of hope because for the first time since the Harvester appeared, there was something they could actually do. Reyes raised his voice. Listen to me, all of you. We've spent weeks exploring the unknown, facing dangers we never imagined. But this is the test that will decide whether humans survive out here. I will not run. I will not hide. If there is a chance, even a small one, to show these monsters that we will fight, then we take it. A wave of determination spread across the crew. They nodded, some hesitantly, some with fire in their eyes. Humanity was always at its strongest when pushed into a corner. Into the void minutes later, Lyra stood inside the airlock. Her body was bare of any suit or armor. Tiny streams of light ran across her skin as the nanostructures awakened. She turned to Reyes, who stood on the other side of the glass, watching her with steady eyes. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. She smiled. "I was never alone. Not after meeting you." The doors opened and Lyra stepped into the emptiness of space. The void swallowed her, but she did not fall. She walked slowly across the hull of the ship, her hands brushing the cold metal. The crew watched her through cameras, their breaths held. She looked almost like a ghost drifting on the edge of infinity. When she reached the central plating above the drive core, she knelt and pressed her hands to the surface. Her body merged with the ship's outer layer, the nanostructures crawling like silver veins across the hull. She closed her eyes and the lights across her skin flared bright. "Begin the transfer," Reyes ordered. The pulse builds inside the engine room. Technicians worked frantically. Energy surged through the conduits, pushing the ship to its limits. Warning lights flashed everywhere, but no one stopped. The power built higher and higher, and every system screamed under the pressure. On the hull, Lyra arched her back. The energy coursed through her like fire and lightning, but she did not let go. Her body trembled, yet her face remained calm. The harvester sensed the change. Its massive form shifted, countless tendrils rising like the arms of a giant squid. Energy beams crackled from its body, striking the void with flashes of blue light. It was preparing to strike. "Commander," Harris shouted. "It's targeting us." "Hold steady," Reyes replied. "Trust her." The energy reached its peak. Sparks flew across the ship's systems. Screens went dark, then flared back to life. The Endeavor shook violently as if caught in a storm of pure power. Then, with a sudden cry, Lyra released it. The strike, a blinding wave of light, erupted from the ship, centered on Lyra's body. The pulse spread like a burning sun across the void, striking the harvester head-on. For a brief moment, space itself seemed to ripple. The harvester screamed, not with sound but with vibrations that shook every heart on the ship. Its massive body recoiled, tendrils snapping back as the pulse tore through them. Parts of its surface cracked and burned, strange fluids spilling into the void. The monster twisted away, its lights dimming. It was not destroyed, but it was hurt, deeply hurt. The crew cheered, their voices filling the bridge. Some wept openly, their relief overflowing. For the first time, they had seen one of the ancient predators bleed. Aftermath on the hull, Lyra lay motionless. The nanostructures faded, leaving her body pale and fragile once more. Reyes rushed to the airlock, his heart pounding. When the doors opened, he and 2 crew members pulled her inside. Her breathing was weak, but her lips curved into a faint smile. "You did it," Reyes whispered, holding her hand. Her eyes fluttered open. "No," she said softly. "We did it, together." The ship's systems stabilized, though badly damaged. The harvester, though still alive, slowly retreated into the endless dark, leaving trails of broken energy behind. The danger was not gone, but the message was clear. Humans were no longer defenseless prey. The warning hours later, the crew gathered in the main hall. The lights were dim, but spirits were high. They had survived the impossible, and more than that, they had fought back. Reyes stood before them. "Today we stood against something that should have destroyed us. But we endured. Remember this moment because it is proof of what we are capable of." Lyra, resting nearby, lifted her head. Her voice was quiet, but every ear caught her words. "That was only a scout. The swarm will come." The room fell silent. Fear returned, but this time it was mixed with resolve. They had seen victory once. They could see it again. Reyes looked at his crew, then at Lyra. His voice was steady. "Then we'll be ready. Humans always are." The smile in the void. The Endeavor turned its course back toward Earth. Its engines were scarred, its crew exhausted, but its spirit burned brighter than ever. They carried not just the warning of the swarm, but also a living symbol of humanity's forgotten strength. Lyra, the woman who had crossed the void, crawled onto their hull and smiled. As the stars stretched before them, Lyra sat by the window of the med bay. Her body was weak, but her eyes were alive. She looked out into the endless night and smiled again. Not at the void, but at the future, because she knew now that humanity would not face the darkness alone. Together they would fight. Together they would endure. And together they would prove once again that in the great cold silence of the universe, humans were special,